It's a very special edition of the podcast, which is all about the world of marketing on television through TV shopping networks and infomercials. Are we on the air? I'm your host, Sean Wilsey, and for over 29 years, I've hosted shows on cable shopping networks, generating billions of dollars in sales. And now I want to be your guide into this world, explaining how it works, why it works, what doesn't work, and introduce you to the people who are making it the success that it is today. Joy Mangano is one of the true legends in the television shopping industry. Since 1992, Joy's infomercials and products, first featured on QVC, then later on HSN, have become household names. Miracle Mop, Huggable Hangers, the Rolly Kit, they're just a few of the more famous inventions she's responsible for. As a named inventor of 71 patent families and 126 distinct patent publications, Ms. Mangano is now adding the title of executive producer to her extensive resume. Her show, America's Big Deal, debuted October 14th on the USA Network, where young inventors have a chance to showcase their products to a panel of experts. And joining me to discuss this show, I am happy to welcome back Marvin Segel to the show. Marvin, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be back with you.
It is wonderful to have you here. We each were anticipating this show greatly because on paper, I'll tell you this, on paper, I thought brilliant concept. Didn't know how it was going to be executed, but I thought on paper, this is a brilliant idea. Few minutes into the show, well, I've always said I'm going to keep my opinions to myself during this show, but it's tough to. Started to realize this is not going necessarily in the direction I thought it was going to go. When I looked the next day at the ratings for the show, because in TV shopping, we don't necessarily care about ratings, we care about sales, and that's how we judge the success of a show is what are the sales. In broadcast shows, network shows, they want to know what their ratings were for the show. Well, for the USA Network, which again, this is no, Little League network, they lost, they meaning the show America's Big Deal, they lost 2/3 of the lead-in. Now, in layman's terms, what that means is the people that were watching the show prior, which, by the way, was ranked number 21 for the night in all of cable, 2/3 of that audience left. They did not stick around for America's Big Deal, which wound up being, I think it was 106 for the night. In cable, that's not good. Marv, what happened?
Well, there's a lot. It's easy to play Monday morning quarterback, and I love Joy Mangano.
Ditto.
I've had many meetings with them in New York with her son, and I respect them tremendously. I think there were a lot of things that were, again, playing Monday morning quarterback that were done wrong. I think the backstory would have been really critical to have, and that would have leveled the playing field up front by having the before and after, like, tell me about your product. Like when I used to do sales training, as you know, I did sales training at QVC and Shop NBC. And I would just simply go around the room and I'd say, tell me your name, the name of your product, and why I should buy your product. And right away, I mean, in like a minute, I'd know if they were going to make it or not. And I'd listen to every one of these people and then perfect what they were going to do. Maybe it's a network show, maybe at no charge, make an animation for them, maybe make a little B-roll, a little video for them. They didn't do any of that. And I think the biggest thing that's missing is not the stage they were at, because I've met with many of these people over the years. I think the biggest thing that was missing was the funding for the prototype and the funding for the first order. I mean, getting the order leaves them in a dilemma. They didn't talk about it, but did they even have the money to make $100,000 worth of the product? And who knows? That was not discussed. But wouldn't it be nice if they were going to provide the funding to do that at the same time? And then the other shocking thing to me is, if that's not a shot across the bow for QVC, that the winner picked Macy's over QVC HSN, that was like, wow.
Yeah. And let me take two steps back for anybody that didn't get a chance to see the show. As we're recording this episode of the podcast, it is the Sunday following the Thursday debut. So by the time you're listening, maybe 2-3 weeks have gone by. The premise is 4 people come out, think of Shark Tank. 4 different individuals come out one at a time, and they present their product. And there's a key word, by the way, present, and we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, that's a big, yeah.
Yeah. And they do it in front of a representative from Lowe's, Macy's, and then Joy Mangano, who is representing HSN and QVC. Because for those that don't know, that's one corporate entity now. And the winner is the one who is judged. The show's done live, and the winner is the one who has the most sales during that hour. Again, we can go on and on about that problem too. And then the winner got to choose, do they want to deal with Lowe's, do they want to deal with Macy's, want to deal with QVC HSN? And the winner was the woman who had Minky Blue Mariah backpack. It was a backpack. And it was actually, I thought, one of the cooler inventions on the show. And I would have bet you, Marv, I would have bet you money she'd go with QVC HSN, but she went with Macy's.
And that is a product that is screaming to be demoed.
Yep.
And sitting in Macy's on a shelf, nothing against Macy's, is not real good for it. Now, again, if the show would have created a video, so they would have had like a video kiosk for that handbag showing all the features of it, and on the presentation, and we'll discuss that word in a second, that was done for all the products, if they would have had it propped out correctly with a laptop, a water bottle, and shown all the things, and you've seen that done on TV shopping forever. And remember the old Freedom bag from years and years ago, showing everything that the bag held, that would have been tremendous, but they didn't do that. And I cringed because, again, my father founded QVC, and I, was held to a standard. I had to be at the family dinners being told what I did wrong on air every weekend. And he hated the word pitch. Pitch is like, you're trying to sell me something, versus a presentation where you're presenting your product and showing what makes your product so unique. And again, they didn't do that. And I printed out some stuff before this, because I really love this. And one of the things I loved the most was training people to go on air. And there's a company that does this better than anybody. And when I used to do sales training, I'd break the room up into groups of 4, and there'd be like 5 of these groups. And I would hand them out some 3M products, the type that hang on a piece of pegboard. And then I give them some goofy items, like a 1 foot long, paper clip, really weird stuff, guy gifts. And I'd say, tell me the features and benefits of the product. And what's interesting is, and I'm going to hold this up to you, and you can do this, and if you want to create a link to it afterwards, pick any 3M product that hangs on a tag, on a peg, and you'll see the 3 benefits are right on it all the time. And Shawn, in my entire career of doing this, Shawn, nobody in 30 years of doing this ever listed these 3 items that were right on the package. They'd come up with other stuff. And my point of doing that exercise was to prove to everybody how simple it is. It's staring at you. And those people that were basically novices didn't get that benefit of that training, which could have made them better no matter what happened after the show. And that would have been a really cool thing to do for them. I don't like the premise of Shark Tank. Nothing against O'Leary, obviously very successful. I don't like demeaning people because they've risked their mortgage and a house and everything else. That kind of rubs me the wrong way. I would love to actually give people great advice and then send them on their way. Whether they end up, getting an offer or not, they're getting exposed on national TV, make them a little bit better. That's my goal. And they didn't do that. And I think that's really a shame.
And for anyone that's more familiar maybe with Shark Tank, you might know that many of those deals, after the handshake happens, they go through due diligence, and nothing ever actually comes of many of those deals. And I noticed on the closing credits for this show, America's Best Deal, that they have a similar clause that the offer that is made is contingent on, a due diligence, and that, they have to each mutually agree to the terms of the deal. So just because this winner with the backpack got this deal with Macy's, the ink's not dry yet. So we'll see what happens.
No, and the other thing, I actually bought the the teeth cleaning product, the mouthwash for my dog. And what I found interesting was afterwards, because I was just kind of curious, I wanted to click on the link. It actually says, which is contrary to everything we've grown up in 30 years in TV shopping, it literally says all of the purchases on America's Big Deal are final, and you're not able to, there's no returns or refunds after your order is placed. Right. And I think that is unfortunate. I mean, imagine if it comes in defective, damage, you just don't like it. I mean, you're stuck with it. And I think that's a shame. And that could have hurt their sales. Not that that show was just about the sales, because that was more of just a bar for who did the best. But fundamentally, I think there were two reasons that and think of the coincidence, the last two presenters came in third and fourth. Why? Yep. As you pointed out, 2/3 of the audience dropped off right away.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two is they were the last two. So there was that much less time to buy the product versus the first two. No different than if you're a fan of The Voice. Shawn, do you watch that show?
I have seen The Voice, yes.
Okay. So in the beginning, everybody wants everybody, but as their teams fill up right at the end, they get very selective. And people that would have got picked on a team in the beginning don't get picked in the very end because the teams are filled up and they're getting a lot pickier. And I think this suffered from that also. I'm not sure. I mean, no one's asked me, but I mean, I think there's a fix for it, but it's a problem. And I think the last two presenters I will see historically what happens. I think they're going to be sabotaged, but I think the big thing here simply was it didn't come off the way it should have. I mean, everybody, and I even looked at doing this with a couple of people because I've done a couple shows in my life and my career. And Shark Tank has had a 20-year run without being challenged.
True.
And it can be, and it should be. But I think there's a level to do that, which is regarding the funding. If they like the product, hey, we're going to fund it. We're going to fund your first purchase order. We're going to fund your prototype, whatever the case is. And then they're going to handhold them and take them through to the next level. And they didn't do that. And that's the most critical part. Again, I'm the guy, because I ran vendor relations at both companies, I'm the guy that had to deal with those people. And they basically barely had an item that was in a box. And I mean, my criteria was when I got a phone call to either channel was, is your item in a box ready to ship? And about half of the people weren't even at that stage because they couldn't do that yet.
One of the things I found interesting before the show even launched, and I don't even think I've told Marv this, because I was doing some research. I was curious. So they've got these, I knew that they were going to have these people on the show that were going to be launching their product to a nationwide audience. I started wondering, I wonder how savvy these people are about getting out there online, because you and I have talked a lot about the future of this industry and how it's, held in the palm of your hand. So I started searching the hashtag America's Best Deal. The only one of those vendors that was on Twitter or Instagram or anything saying, hey, folks, I'm on my way to America's Best Deal. I'm going to be on national television. I'm about to do this. The only one was the guy with the spider grip, with the little the thing for the cell phone. No one else had posted anything on social media. Because, I mean, am I wrong? Wouldn't that be the first thing you would do if you've got a product and you're about to go on USA Network on television?
Well, first off, in today's world, the show should have had a social media influencer, in my opinion.
Good point.
That is in the business space, and they should have been blogging about it, posting about it. And again, that's a miss. What did we talk about in our last series we did about the history of TV shopping? We talked about the fact that my daughter has more social media followers than most of the show hosts on TV shopping. It's a miss, and it drives me crazy how many people are not getting that and understanding it. And this show, I mean, missed it also. Yet there's I don't know if you saw this article that came out recently. I mean, just on not to get off subject, the NBC Today show, Steals and Deals, is now doing about $60 million a year.
Yeah.
In sales in 5 minutes. So, I mean, it's well presented. Jill Martin knows what she's doing. It's concise. It's quick. Boom, boom, boom. And that's what needs to be done. And it could be done. And again, there's a lot of things they missed. Maybe they'll get better. We'll see what happens.
I'm laughing because I have an entire show coming up about how people that say, oh, I would never watch TV shopping. If you're watching the Today Show, you're watching TV shopping. If you're watching Rachel Ray or any of these daytime shows, The View, you are watching TV shopping because they're not just out there as a courtesy saying these are great products.
Right. Entertainment Tonight has a steals and deals segment. They all do now. We've actually even added that to one of the radio shows that we're involved in. I don't want to get distracted here, but we're starting to do that because one of our radio show hosts has 1.2 million followers.
There you go.
So, and as we know, TV shopping started on radio. So why not? But I mean, again, going back to America's Big Deal, it's a concept that should work, may work. It just, I think there are a lot of like little miscues right now.
Is it on the wrong network? I kind of got the feeling maybe this is a CNBC show. USA Network, I don't know.
No, that's also a good point too. But again, in today's world, if you and I were going to start a TV shopping channel today, one of the things we wouldn't do is it wouldn't be on TV. We would use YouTube, we would use Facebook, etc.
True.
That could have and should have been a show, again, that existed in social media with a huge push with an influencer. And again, what's the gentleman's name? I can't remember who's on one of the entertainment shows. Her host, co-host, her MC. I can't remember his name right now. You'll remember afterwards. But I mean, somebody like that, but that has a social media following, and they can talk about it and bring the traffic, bring the eyeballs to that show, and that was not there. Even when it started, what'd you say, 21? I mean, was 21 still a decent number for them? I don't know. I mean, look at the reach. The Joy is as big, if not bigger. I'm not saying this is saying much, but it's almost an insult to Joy. I mean, she's got more followers than Shop HQ.
Right. No, that's very true.
I mean, she's got a huge. She did a good push. I mean, she was out there blogging, but that's for her group. You're trying to bring in new people too. I mean, people will buy whatever she's inventing, but they weren't those products. And again, the telltale thing, which made me sad, was that the person didn't pick QVC.
Yeah. The rating for this show was 0.05. The lead-in got 0.15 and was the 21st top-rated cable show of the night, and America's Big Deal was into the hundreds, like 106, 110, somewhere in there. Getting back to how the show was scored and judged, because we each agree that the people at the top of the show are probably going to have an advantage to the people at the end of the show. For anyone who's listening to this, and I know we have people listening that are marketers that want to get products on TV, how important is it to not necessarily, because I guess I don't know if it's fair, because you and I know that at the end of the day, the dollars you score is only part of the equation. Would it be more important to look at what are their margins? If somebody's getting a 50-point margin on one of these products, shouldn't that weigh heavier? Dollars per minute. You and I both know that in TV shopping, it comes down to dollars per minute. It's not your total sales.
Right. No, all those things, and you're very correct. You can have a product that would do, if we pick on QVC, might do 7,000 or 8,000 a minute. But if it's a beauty product running at a 55% or 60% margin, big difference than an item running at a 30% margin. I mean, consumer electronics, as we know, has very thin margins and has to do a lot in order to be considered doing well. But, again, there's a lot of criteria that goes into it. It's not that clean, not that simple. But again, they made up the rules for the show. I'm sure some very smart people did that. But I'm still back to I go back to The Voice. The Voice has great backstories. You learn about them, how they struggled growing up, all that stuff. You didn't really get that with this show. And nor did you see them going through a little bit of training, making their presentation a little bit better. And I think that was, I mean, look, again, go to The Voice. They come in and they get training, if they make it past a round. So wouldn't it be neat to see the producers or people like you and I screening the people, putting them in the training, and then seeing how much better they got? That's a whole story by itself.
This also ties in with our conversation that we had prior with Marvin, because as Marvin mentioned, for those that don't know, his father was the founder of QVC. As I was watching this show, I'm thinking, boy, I feel like I've seen this before. Here's first time people pitching their products. QVC did something in the 1990s called the 50 and 50 tour. And maybe you can explain what that was for those that don't know, because it was a brilliant idea.
I actually was on one of the committees that would pre-screen the products.
Yeah.
Back then. And the 50 and 50 tour went around the country, a new state every week, and they would screen dreamers that had inventors that had a product and wanted to get it on QVC. And they would pitch their product to a committee. I was part of that committee. Marilyn Montrose and some other people were part of that. And then if they got by us, then they got to potentially get to a buyer and get on the show. And it was, some of the best products some of the funniest products were found on the 50 and 50 tour. And that you needed to see that backstory. That backstory on the 50 and 50 tour made great video for QVC back then. Things like, the crab cakes, things like the pooping moose, which is legendary.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yes.
Yes. Those were, again, and I've said this many times when I've been quoted, if I would have been shown the pooping moose, I would have gone, no way. And for those that want to Google it after this, it was a moose carved out of poplar wood. And if you know what poplar wood is, it's very bland looking, not stained, not painted. And when you tilted the head down on the moose, it would dispense candy at its rear end. The effect was phenomenal with chocolate covered raisinets. It was just priceless. Yeah. And all anybody could do was laugh. Well, the guy laughed all the way to the bank. I think there were $49 a moose, and he sold like 1 million of them. And then diversified and did the pooping bear. But those types of things, the point you're bringing up there is there was training involved to get that person right.
When we look back at some of those classic moments, again, it's a pooping moose. Marv described it perfectly, but he's right. You can go find pictures of that. A lot of those products live on to this day, and so it was a great way for the young inventors. Because I'm with you. I don't want us to come across like we're critiquing the people that were on the show itself. They did a fine job. Which one? There were 4. Let me, in fact, go down here, because there's, for those that haven't seen it yet, Spider Grip, which is basically a device that you put on your phone to hold it. There was the backpack that we mentioned. You mentioned the dental products for your dog, and then a woman who had an extra large curling iron, which she cutely called the Mr. Big curling iron. Who in your mind scored the best in their presentation?
I think it was somewhere between the curling iron and the handbag, but neither were where they would have been acceptable in QVC. I'm going to make that as the gold standard. Again, not propped out. You could have had more models. You could have had people sitting there curling their hair. So you could go to, a bunch of different images of before and afters, and none of that was done. They missed it in terms of really doing it to the level you'd have to be if you were going to go on QVC. That person with the handbag, if they would have picked QVC, what would have happened? They would have gone in the training before they ever went on air. But here they were going on a national audience. No one gave them training. Or if they did, they didn't talk about it, nor did they have any video of it.
When you look at the television quality, neither of us is qualified necessarily to be executive producers of this. By the way, I want to point out, for anybody that's saying that Joy Mangano, she's executive producer, she's responsible for this show, executive producer titles are handed out like candy in the world of television these days. There were, I counted, 5 executive producers on this show. So Joy may have had her hand in it, but if you didn't like a certain part of the execution of the show, by no means can you say that's Joy Mangano's fault.
Right.
I thought the audience was overkill. I don't think the audience was necessary.
I 100% agree with that too. Again, a lot of things that could be done differently. I'm assuming all the episodes are shot, because if you go online, you can see what all the episodes are coming up. So I'm assuming they're probably already done. So I'm not sure what tweaks they will make. Look, this is no different. And those of you that are listening to this right now, when you watch an infomercial on TV, that infomercial, the way you see it is not the way it was originally done. It was done to a very select audience first. They tweak it, they recut it, they re-edit it based on reaction to it. I don't know that they did that, because that's really what this was. This was like a little baby infomercial broken up into segments. And, you know, there could have been a lot of tweaking that was done or will be done to make it better going forward. Again, the concept is valid. I think you need to pick this up even earlier, and it needs to be, do the producers or the screeners, and they could be very credible people, Shawn, they could be you and I, along with the head of vendor relations for QVC, the head buyer for Macy's, et cetera. And if you get by them, you get funding for your prototype if you don't have it. You're guaranteed funding for your first order if you're picked. I mean, that would be really phenomenal for those people. People don't realize, I mean, Joy does, but how much strain there is for inventors to risk everything to get to that point.
Before we close things out for this episode, tell me what's going on at Y Networks.
I'm sorry?
Tell me, before we close things out for this episode here, tell me what's going on with your Y Networks.
Y Networks is still in the middle of a three-way merger, which is like I describe it as grabbing a hold of a cloud, and the cloud keeps changing shape a little bit, and we're doing that, and the funding is basically in place. We have an LOI for the deal, and we're trying to get all the pieces together. There's now, I can't say the name, but there's now another major company that may also get involved with us in terms of merging in. And again, I believe the future is content-based shopping. It's not about the presentation or the word I hate, the pitch. It's about great content. And then here's the product you can buy that's being featured in that content. And that's a 180-degree turn from what's happening out there right now.
Tell everybody where they can find you and where they can find your networks and all of that.
Sure. The Y Networks is www.networks.com, and you'll see everybody there. You'll see the content we have. We have a phenomenal 2-hour interview with Ice-T from Law & Order. It is phenomenal. It's one of the things I'm most proud of, along with our music channel. And our music channel features a lot of songwriters with brand new music videos, and that's all on our platform.
And everybody needs to go there and check it out. And Marvin, I have a feeling we're not done with this conversation about America's Best Deal or America's Best. Is it America's Best Deal or Big Deal? I've gone back and forth calling it both.
America's Big Deal. Okay,
so everybody can check that out on USA Network on Thursday nights and see for yourself. But do be advised. And I got to say, when Marv told me that there were no returns on those items, that really took me back. That's like, wow, that should have been fully disclosed, because that was one of the things.
That's contrary to everything you and I know.
Yeah, because Marvin's dad, when they started QVC, was one of the things. It's like fully disclosed. You have a 30-day return privilege, shipping and handling, all of that. So, well, anyway, Marvin, again, I can't thank you enough for joining me.
My pleasure, and I look forward to chatting more.
We will do it. And I hope that all of you will be checking me out on social media. You can find me on Twitter at Shawn Wilsie, full name, ShawnWilsie. Also on Facebook, by the way. I never plugged my Facebook, but you can check me out on Facebook as well. Shawn Wilsie, full name, ShawnWilsie. And on Instagram at SWilsie. Thank you so much for downloading this special edition of Are We on the Air? This has been a King Bobby production.
Yes, I know, Travis. That's why we give such bargains.